was supposed to be a normal delivery, but what happened inside that small veterinary room would leave everyone speechless. A German Shepherd named Grace had been in labor for hours, yet not a single puppy came out. Her heart rate spiked, her breathing turned shallow, and she looked toward her owner as if begging for help. The vet, puzzled and sweating, placed his stethoscope on her belly and froze. What he heard wasn't just a heartbeat, it was many heartbeats, moving in a way that made no sense. Moments later, an ultrasound revealed something so unbelievable that the vet jumped back, shouting, "Oh my God!" What he discovered would change how the world saw this mother dog forever. But to understand why Grace refused to give birth, you have to go back a few days earlier, to the moment she was rescued from an abandoned warehouse with a secret hidden inside her. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The night was quiet, too quiet for that part of town. A thin fog curled around the broken windows of an old warehouse, its rusted doors half open, creaking with the wind. Inside, the air smelled of dust, oil, and something else, fear. Animal Control Officer Lena Morris stepped inside cautiously, her flashlight slicing through the darkness. She had received a call from a truck driver who'd heard faint whining sounds coming from the building. Her boots crunched over broken glass as she whispered, "It's okay, girl. I'm not here to hurt you." The sound came again, a soft, desperate whimper from behind a stack of crates. Lena slowly approached and froze. There, huddled in a corner, was a German Shepherd, ribs showing, eyes wide with exhaustion. Her belly was swollen, clearly pregnant, yet she refused to move. "Hey, you're okay now?" Lena murmured, kneeling down. But the dog didn't respond. She just stared, panting heavily, her body trembling. Every time Lena tried to get closer, the Shepherd let out a low, protective growl, not out of aggression but terror. Something about her posture told Lena this wasn't just another stray. This was a mother fighting to protect something. Minutes passed before Lena noticed what the dog was lying on, a torn piece of cloth that looked like it had been wrapped around her belly. Someone had tried to help her, or hide something. Realizing she couldn't move the dog by force, Lena radioed for backup. "I found her. She's pregnant, but something's wrong. She won't budge." When the second officer arrived, they used a blanket to gently lift her. The Shepherd didn't resist this time, only let out a weak whine, eyes closing in exhaustion. As they placed her into the van, Lena whispered, "You're safe now, girl. We'll get you help." But even as the van pulled away, Lena couldn't shake one thought. Why had this dog, clearly in pain, refused to give birth, or even move from that spot? She didn't know it yet, but the answer would soon shock everyone. The morning sun poured through the shelter's glass windows as the van pulled in. Volunteers gathered near the entrance, their chatter fading when they saw the exhausted German Shepherd being carried inside. Her fur was dull, her breathing heavy, and her eyes, dark, deep, and full of fear, darted at every sound. The tag on her crate simply read, "Grace." Lena stayed beside her the entire time, gently stroking her paw. "You're safe now, Grace. Nobody's going to hurt you," she whispered. The vet on duty, Dr. Harris, examined her carefully. "She's close to delivery," he murmured. "But she's stressed. Too much stress can delay labor." Grace flinched at every metallic sound, the clinking tools, the barking of other dogs. It was as if every noise reminded her of something from that dark warehouse. When an assistant tried to feed her, Grace nudged the bowl away, refusing to eat. She wasn't aggressive, just guarded, watchful. The shelter staff noticed something strange that afternoon. Every time someone approached her belly, Grace would turn her body slightly, shielding it. One of the volunteers, Emma, whispered, "It's like she's hiding something." Dr. Harris ran a gentle hand over her swollen abdomen. "She's full term," he said softly. "But she's resisting labor. Maybe fear, maybe trauma. We'll give her space, warmth, and time." That evening, the shelter dimmed the lights early. A soft blanket was placed under Grace and a heater kept her warm. Outside her kennel, a small sign read, "Expecting. Please be gentle." Lena stayed late, watching from a corner as Grace finally lay her head down. The dog's eyes flickered between exhaustion and something else. Sadness, maybe guilt. Lena whispered, "Whatever you went through, it's over now." But even as Grace's breathing slowed into uneasy sleep, her tail twitched and her paws trembled. Somewhere inside, she was still fighting a battle no one else could see. And in just a few nights, that hidden struggle would turn into a miracle no one could have imagined. Days passed, but Grace still refused to give birth. The shelter grew quiet around her, as if everyone sensed the tension in the air. Each morning, volunteers would peek into her kennel, hoping to see tiny puppies, but every time, they found the same sight. Grace lying still, her head resting on her paws, her deep brown eyes fixed on the door. Dr. Harris monitored her closely, scribbling notes on his clipboard. "It's unusual," he said during rounds. "She's healthy enough, her contractions should have started by now. But something is holding her back." His words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Lena spent most of her shifts sitting beside Grace's kennel, reading softly or just talking to her. "You're safe now, sweetheart," she'd say. "You can let go." But Grace only gave a quiet whine, her tail unmoving. At times, she'd perk up suddenly, ears twitching toward the hallway as if expecting someone, or something, to appear. The staff began to notice her strange behavior. Late at night, when the lights were off, the security camera showed Grace pacing in circles, whining softly at the corner of her pen. It wasn't random. It was deliberate, protective, like she was guarding something no one else could see. "Maybe she lost her last litter," Emma suggested one morning, eyes full of sympathy. "Maybe she's scared it'll happen again." Dr. Harris nodded thoughtfully but looked unconvinced. "Or maybe," he said slowly, "she's waiting for the right moment. Animals sense things we don't." The shelter's mood changed over the next few days, quiet, watchful, anxious. Everyone was waiting for Grace to take that step, to trust again, to bring life into the world. But Grace seemed to be listening to something unseen, a silent rhythm only she could feel. Her eyes, calm yet haunted, followed every sound that echoed from the back door. And though no one understood it then, the reason she waited would soon reveal a truth that would shake everyone in that shelter to their core. It was well past midnight when the first signs began. The shelter was silent except for the hum of the heater and the occasional bark echoing from the kennels. Lena had stayed late again, seated near Grace's enclosure, a cup of coffee growing cold in her hands. That's when she heard it, in a low, trembling whimper. She looked up to see Grace shifting uneasily, her breathing uneven, her body tensing in waves. "Dr. Harris," Lena called out, rushing to her side. Within minutes, the vet arrived, his stethoscope already around his neck. Grace was in labor, but something wasn't right. Her muscles contracted, but there was no progress. "No pup, only pain," she groaned softly, her paw scratching against the metal floor, eyes filled with panic. Dr. Harris frowned. "She should have delivered by now," he muttered. "This isn't normal." He checked her vitals, heart rate high, temperature rising. Grace looked up at Lena as if pleading for help, her gaze deep, human-like. Lena squeezed her paw gently. "You're okay, girl." "You're not alone," she whispered. Minutes turned into hours. The contractions grew weaker. Dr. Harris prepared emergency supplies. "If this continues, we'll lose both her and the pups," he warned. Emma and 2 other volunteers rushed to assist, whispering prayers under their breath. Grace whimpered again, but still no movement. It was as if her body refused to release what was inside. Fear rippled through the room. Not just fear of losing her, but of something they couldn't explain. "Come on, Grace," Lena begged softly. "Fight, please." At that moment, Grace lifted her head weakly, eyes focusing on the door. She let out a soft growl, low and trembling. Everyone froze. "What is it?" Emma whispered. Grace's ears twitched. Her growl deepened, not of anger, but warning. It was as if she sensed something no one else could. Then suddenly she went still. The monitor beeped rapidly. Dr. Harris's voice cut through the tension. "We're losing her. I need to get her to the clinic, and now." And just like that, the night turned into a desperate race against time. The shelter erupted into controlled chaos. Alarms were silent, but the urgency in every movement said it all. Lena and 2 volunteers carefully lifted Grace onto a stretcher, wrapping her trembling body in blankets. Her breathing was shallow, each exhale weaker than the last. "Hang in there, girl," Lena whispered, voice trembling. Dr. Harris climbed into the back of the van, medical kit open, his hands already gloved. "Drive fast but steady," he ordered. The van's engine roared to life, headlights cutting through the empty streets. Rain had started to fall again, drumming softly on the roof. The same kind of rain from the night Grace had been found. Inside, every second felt like an hour. Grace's pulse flickered under Dr. Harris's fingers. He listened to her belly with his stethoscope, frowning deeply. Something's moving. But it's irregular, he murmured. Her body's rejecting labor. We're running out of time. Lena clutched Grace's paw tightly. You can make it, sweetheart. You're stronger than this. For a fleeting moment, Grace opened her eyes, calm, almost knowing, before drifting back into half-consciousness. When they arrived at Greenwood Veterinary Clinic, nurses were already waiting with a gurney. The doors burst open, the smell of antiseptic filling the air. Dr. Harris didn't waste a second. Set up for emergency ultrasound and oxygen support, he barked. Grace was placed on the metal table, her chest rising and falling unevenly. Machines began to beep rhythmically. The screen flickered to life as Dr. Harris ran the ultrasound probe across her swollen belly. Everyone crowded around. Lena, Emma, the nurses. For a moment, there was only the sound of the machine. Then Dr. Harris froze. His eyes widened. No, this can't be right, he whispered. What is it? Lena asked, panic rising in her voice. Dr. Harris leaned closer to the monitor, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. There are multiple heartbeats, he said slowly. But one of them isn't like the others. He looked up sharply, his face pale. Get ready for surgery now. Whatever was inside Grace's belly was far from ordinary. The room fell into a stunned silence. The flicker of the ultrasound screen cast ghostly shadows across the walls, as Dr. Harris adjusted the probe with trembling hands. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Look at this, he whispered. The screen showed multiple small flickering lights, the heartbeats of Grace's unborn puppies. But there was something else, something larger, pulsing in rhythm yet out of sync with the others. Lena stepped closer. Is that another puppy? She asked. Dr. Harris shook his head slowly. No, that's different. He zoomed in on the image, his eyes darting back and forth. It's not positioned like the rest. It's blocking the birth canal, but it's still alive. The nurses exchanged worried glances. Grace whimpered softly, her paws twitching. How is that possible? Emma murmured. Dr. Harris swallowed hard. It's like this one. Somehow knew it had to stay in place. He turned toward the others. That blockage prevented her uterus from collapsing. If she'd gone into full labor earlier, she would have died. Lena stared at the monitor in disbelief. You're saying this puppy saved her? The vet nodded slowly. Yes, it's keeping her alive. The room buzzed with nervous energy. Dr. Harris steadied his voice. We need to operate now. That puppy's strong. But if we wait any longer, both mother and litter will be lost. He called for sterilized tools and prepped Grace for emergency surgery. The heartbeats on the monitor flickered like stars, fragile, fading, but still there. Then suddenly one of the nurses gasped. The larger heartbeat spiked, its rhythm growing stronger. Grace's breathing steadied slightly as if responding to her unborn pup. Dr. Harris froze for a moment, eyes wide with awe. Unbelievable, he whispered. It's like she and that pup are fighting together. He took a deep breath, straightened, and barked the order. All right, anesthesia on my mark. Let's save them both. No one spoke again. The only sound was the steady beeping of the monitor and the heartbeat of the unborn hero that refused to give up. The operating room lights flared to life, flooding the space in sterile white. Dr. Harris stood over Grace, his expression tight with focus. Her heartbeat echoed through the monitor, steady but fragile. Scalpel, he said firmly. The nurse handed it over without hesitation. Every eye in the room was fixed on the table. No one spoke, but everyone felt the weight of the moment. One wrong move and Grace and her puppies could be lost forever. Lena stood just outside the observation window, palms pressed against the glass. Her breath fogged the surface as she whispered, Come on, girl, stay strong. Inside, the vet made the first incision with precision, his hands moving swiftly yet carefully. Suction, he ordered. The nurses moved like clockwork. Then suddenly the monitor beeped in a sharp, uneven tone. We're losing her oxygen saturation, a nurse shouted. Dr. Harris's voice cut through the panic. Increase flow, now. He leaned closer, eyes narrowing. Come on, Grace, don't give up on me. Grace's chest rose weakly, then steadied. The tension broke for a second, but everyone knew it wasn't over yet. Dr. Harris continued working, his voice low but urgent. We're almost there. I can feel one of them. A moment later, a tiny shape emerged, slick, fragile, silent. The nurse quickly wrapped it in a towel, rubbing gently until a faint whimper filled the room. Relief rippled through everyone. One alive, the nurse said, smiling through tears. But Dr. Harris didn't stop. There's more, he said quietly. And one deeper inside. He reached in again, hands trembling slightly. Then something unexpected, a pulse so strong it startled him. The monitor spiked. There it is, he breathed. That's the one. When he lifted the final puppy out, the room went still. The tiny creature gave a sudden, fierce cry, louder, sharper than any newborn pup should. Dr. Harris looked at it in awe. That heartbeat, he murmured. It's the one that saved them all. Lena pressed her hand to her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Grace had made it through. And so had her miracle litter. For a long moment the room was silent. The kind of silence that follows a storm. Then came a single piercing cry. The smallest puppy had arrived, but it wasn't weak or gasping like the others. It was fighting. Its chest heaved rapidly, its heartbeat strong and steady. Everyone stood frozen, staring at the little life that had defied all odds. Dr. Harris gently held the puppy up to the light, his gloved hands trembling. Look at this one, he murmured. The newborn's fur shimmered faintly under the surgical light, not glowing but almost reflecting it in a strange silvery sheen. This one's different. Lena rushed in, unable to stay behind the glass any longer. Her eyes widened as she saw the scene. Grace still unconscious, the nurses tending to the other pups, and in the doctor's hands, the miracle everyone had been praying for. Is she? Lena's voice broke. Dr. Harris nodded, smiling faintly for the first time all night. She's alive and stronger than any of them. He gently placed the pup beside Grace's face. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then Grace stirred, her ears twitching. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then softening as she recognized the scent of her newborns. A weak whine escaped her throat, a mother's first call. The puppy responded with a tiny bark, pressing against her muzzle. The entire room seemed to exhale at once. Tears filled Lena's eyes. You did it, Grace. You did it. Dr. Harris looked at the monitor, shaking his head in disbelief. That one heartbeat kept her uterus active, he explained quietly. It's what prevented the rupture. That little one kept everyone alive. As Grace drifted into peaceful sleep, surrounded by her pups, the air in the room changed, heavy with relief, awe, and something else, wonder. The vet smiled softly, whispering, "Wow, welcome to the world, little hero." And though no one said it out loud, everyone in that room knew. They had just witnessed a miracle. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of the recovery ward, painting soft golden lines across the floor. The storm had passed, leaving behind the kind of calm that feels almost sacred. Grace lay on a thick blanket, her newborn puppies nestled close to her belly, each one breathing in perfect rhythm. The monitors beside her now displayed steady, peaceful lines, the sound of survival. Lena sat nearby, exhausted but smiling. She hadn't left Grace's side since the surgery. Watching the mother dog nuzzle her pups with quiet devotion brought tears to her eyes. "You're a fighter, Grace," she whispered, "and you've given life to 7 more just like you." Dr. Harris entered quietly, holding a small clipboard. He crouched down beside them, studying Grace and her litter. "All stable," he said softly. "Her vitals are normal." "And the pups, strong, responsive. Especially." He paused, looking at the smallest one, the puppy that had saved them all. "Especially her." Lena followed his gaze. The little pup was pressed tightly against Grace's heart, her fur slightly lighter than the rest, her breathing deep and steady. "She's the one, isn't she?" Lena asked. Dr. Harris nodded slowly. "Yes. If that one hadn't stayed lodged where she did, Grace's uterus would have ruptured. She shouldn't have survived the night. None of them should have." He exhaled, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I've delivered hundreds of litters, but I've never seen anything like this." The shelter staff gathered around, some whispering prayers, others simply watching in awe. The air was thick with gratitude, not just for the medical miracle, but for something deeper. It was as though love itself had refused to give up. Grace opened her eyes then, glancing toward Lena and Dr. Harris. For a moment, It seemed she understood every word, every emotion in the room. She gave a soft, contented sigh and rested her head over her tiny miracle. And that's when Lena whispered the words that would soon become the puppy's name, Angel. A week later, the shelter was filled with laughter and life again. The once silent kennel now echoed with the tiny squeaks and playful yips of Grace's puppies. Sunlight poured through the windows, warming the clean straw bed where the proud mother rested. Her fur had regained its shine, her eyes no longer fearful but full of calm, the look of a soul that had survived the storm. Lena entered quietly with a bowl of food, smiling as Grace lifted her head. "Hey, beautiful girl," she whispered. "You did it." Grace wagged her tail slowly, then looked down at her puppies. 7 tiny bodies wriggled and tumbled over one another, but one, the smallest, stood out, Angel. Her fur still carried that faint silvery sheen under the light, her movements lively and sure. When visitors came to see the miracle litter, they were drawn instantly to her. "That's the one," people would ask. Lena would nod, a proud smile on her face. "Yes, that's Angel, the puppy that saved them all." Dr. Harris often stopped by, unable to forget that night. "Science can explain what happened," he said once, watching the pup's nurse. "But I still believe something more was at work. Instinct, love, maybe both." The story of Grace and Angel spread far beyond the shelter. A local journalist covered it, calling it "the dog who refused to give birth," until her puppy saved her life. Within days, messages of love and donations poured in from around the world. People sent letters thanking the shelter for believing in her. One letter stood out. It simply read, "Sometimes miracles come wrapped in fur." Lena framed it above Grace's kennel. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Grace curled around her puppies, and Angel nestled beneath her chin. The world outside kept moving, but inside that little shelter, love had rewritten the laws of survival. And for everyone who witnessed it, one truth remained clear. Sometimes the smallest heart beats the loudest.